Lesson 57, Back in the Old Country. We'll talk about going back to one's hometown in this text. Now first, listen and answer this question. Did the narrator find his mother's grave? 作者找到了他母亲的坟墓吗？
I stopped to let the car cool off and to study the map. I had expected to be near my objective by now, but everything still seemed alien to me. I was only 5 when my father had taken me abroad, and that was 18 years ago. When my mother had died after a tragic accident, he did not quickly recover from the shock and loneliness. Everything around him was full of her presence, continually reopening the wound. So he decided to emigrate. In the new country, he became absorbed in making a new life for the two of us, so that he gradually ceased to grieve. He did not marry again, and I was brought up without a woman's care. But I lacked for nothing, for he was both father and mother to me. He always meant to go back one day, but not to stay. His roots and mine had become too firmly embedded in the new land. But he wanted to see the old folk again and to visit my mother's grave. He became mortally ill a few months before we had planned to go, and when he knew that he was dying, he made me promise to go on my own. I hired a car the day after landing and bought a comprehensive book of maps, which I found most helpful on the cross-country journey, but which I did not think I should need on the last stage. It was not that I actually remembered anything at all, but my father had described over and over again what we should see at every milestone, after leaving the nearest town, so that I was positive I should recognize it as familiar territory. Well, I had been wrong, for I was now lost. I looked at the map and then at the mileometer. I had come 10 miles since leaving the town, and at this point, according to my father, I should be looking at farms and cottages in a valley, with the spire of the church of our village showing in the far distance. I could see no valley, no farms, no cottages, and no church spire, only a lake. I decided that I must have taken a wrong turning somewhere. So I drove back to the town and began to retrace the route, taking frequent glances at the map. I landed up at the same corner. The curious thing was that the lake was not marked on the map. I felt as if I had stumbled into a nightmare country, as you sometimes do in dreams. And, as in a nightmare, there was nobody in sight to help me. Fortunately for me, as I was wondering what to do next, there appeared on the horizon a man on horseback, riding in my direction. I waited till he came near. Then I asked him the way to our old village. He said that there was now no village. I thought he must have misunderstood me, so I repeated its name. This time he pointed to the lake. The village no longer existed because it had been submerged, and all the valley too. The lake was not a natural one, but a man-made reservoir.
So did the author find his mother's grave? No, he didn't, because the village had been submerged by a man-made reservoir. This text is a first-person narrative, telling us about the author's own experience in going back to his hometown. At the beginning of the text, he tells us that he couldn't find his way to it. Then he goes on to tell us why they left their hometown. This going backward in time when you are telling a story is called flashback, 倒叙. After this, he makes another flashback about how he arrived at this point of the journey since he landed in the old country. Then he proceeds according to the time sequence. telling us how he met an old man, telling him that the old village had been submerged. Okay, now let's look at some language points in the text. I stopped to let the car cool off. Cool off here means to let the engine become colder. Let's look at more examples. After a morning in the sun, he likes to cool off in the sea, or cool down in the sea. Here, cool off or cool down simply means become colder. They were desperately in love at first, but now it's starting to cool off. So you can also use cool off to describe people's emotion, meaning feeling less strong. The opposite of cool off is warm up. For example, I'll warm up the engine while you are putting your coats on. Here, warm up means to make the engine start working. If you don't warm up before taking exercise, you risk injuring yourself. Warm up here means to do some starting exercises. 热身. I had expected to be near my objective by now. Objective here means aim or destination. Here it refers to my hometown. Let's look at more examples. His main objective now is simply to stay in power. His main aim now. Do you think you have achieved or attained or met your objectives after 4 years' study? 达到目标, we can use these verbs to go together with objectives. Science is usually concerned only with objective facts that can be proved. Objective here is used as an adjective. It's the opposite of subjective. 客观. Everything still seemed alien to me. Alien here means strange, unfamiliar. Let's look at more examples of the meaning of alien. The country had an alien government imposed on it by force. Alien here is being used with its basic meaning, foreign. When I first went to New York, it all felt very alien. Alien here means the same as the one in the text, unfamiliar, strange. I find the idea of sending young children to boarding school totally alien. Here, alien means totally unacceptable. 把很小的孩子送到寄宿学校，这个主意觉得不可接受。Everything around him was full of her presence. Presence here is used to refer to the feeling of somebody still being around in a certain place, as if his mother was still alive and around. Look at one more example. His daughter's presence seemed to fill her empty room. He still felt that his daughter was around in her empty room. Continually reopening the wound. It's used figuratively, meaning still reminding him of the sadness of the loss of her. Look at this example. She refused to talk about the incident, saying it would only reopen an old wound. It would only remind her of the unhappiness. So he decided to emigrate. To emigrate means to move out from a certain country. For example, millions of Germans emigrated from Europe to America in the 19th century. 从欧洲移民到美国. The opposite direction, we use the verb immigrate, which means to move into a country and settle down. For example, he immigrated into Canada last year. If you move into a certain country or a certain place, but live there only temporarily, then you can use the verb migrate. For example, Many farm workers migrate into big cities each year to look for work at harvest time. In the new country, he became absorbed in making a new life. Absorbed here means attentive or concentrating on. Let's look at more examples. She was absorbed in her thoughts. She was focused on her own thinking. Now let's look at more examples to see whether absorb means the same thing. I'll give you some time to absorb the details of the story. Absorb here means to take in, so that to fully understand. The drug is quickly absorbed into the bloodstream. Absorb here is to take in, 被吸收. So that he gradually ceased to grieve. Grieve is a verb meaning feel sad. For example, he grieved for the companion he had lost. We can also use the structure, it grieves somebody to do something. For example, it grieves me to see how selfish they have become. But I lacked for nothing. I lacked for nothing means I had everything that I needed. Lack means be in short of something. Let's look at more examples to see how to use this verb. What we lack in this apartment is space to store things. What we are in short of. I lack the energy that is required to look after children. So you can also use lack as transitive verb, 也可以做及物动词使用. Lack can also be used as a noun. For example, lack of sleep had made him irritable. And lacking is the adjective. For example, he's totally lacking in authority of any kind. 完全缺乏不管是什么样的权威或者威严. His roots and mind had become too firmly embedded in the new land. Be embedded means be fixed very deeply. For example, the thorn was embedded in her thumb. 她的手指头扎刺了. We can also use embed figuratively. For example, the discrimination against women was deeply embedded in the society. Deeply embedded means deep-rooted. He became mortally ill. Mortally here means fatally. For example, the soldier was mortally wounded. Fatally wounded. But in this example, apparently the criticisms mortally offended him. Mortally means very seriously offended him. I hired a car and bought a comprehensive book of maps. Comprehensive means complete and inclusive. For example, he has written a fully comprehensive guide to Rome, meaning a very complete guide. We will offer you a comprehensive training in all aspects of the business. A comprehensive training means a training in every aspect, an all-inclusive training. A comprehensive university refers to that kind of university including both science and arts, 综合性大学. Which I didn't think I should need on the last stage. On the last stage refers to the last part of his journey to the hometown. Stage means a special period of development, 一个阶段. For example, the project is in its final stage and should be completed in a month. Is in the last period of time of development. Our relationship is going through a difficult stage at the moment. Our relationship is experiencing a difficult time. I've been looking for a job for so long that I've reached the stage where I don't care what I do. So long that I've reached that kind of time when I don't care what kind of job I would get. My father had described over and over again what we should see at every milestone. Milestone is a stone or post at roadside to mark the distance, 里程碑. It can also refer to a very important event in a person's life or in history. For example, he felt that going to university was a real milestone in his life. Going to university was really a very important event in his life. So that I was positive I should recognize it as familiar territory. I was certain. Let's look at more examples to see the different meanings of positive in different contexts. Are you positive that you saw me lock the door? Are you sure that you saw me lock the door? It's great being with her because she's got such a positive attitude to everything. Positive here means hopeful or active attitude, 一种积极的态度. He's HIV positive. Positive can also be used to refer to the test result. 它是人体免疫缺损病毒阳性. I should recognize it as familiar territory. Territory basically means the area of a country, 领土. It can also refer to any kind of field or area. For example, the UN is sending aid to the occupied territory, 被占领的领土. His study is forbidden territory to the rest of the family. 他的书房对其他的家庭成员来讲 is a forbidden territory. It's some place that the other members are not allowed. Medieval literature is his territory, is his major field. 他的专业领域. There was nobody in sight to help me. In sight means nobody around at present to help me. Let's look at more examples. When we arrived, there wasn't a soul in sight. Simply means there wasn't anybody around. Peace is now in sight. Here in sight means very close, approaching. The opposite of in sight is out of sight. In English, there's a saying, out of sight, out of mind, meaning so long as you don't see something, you won't think about it. 眼不见心不烦. Get out of my sight, meaning get away. There appeared on the horizon. On the horizon, 在地平线上, meaning the place where the sky and the earth meet. For example, the moon rose slowly above the horizon. On the horizon can also mean very close, about to happen. For example, the new threat on the horizon is unemployment. Horizon, when being used as a plural form, means knowledge or experience. For example, the visit to Europe certainly broadened our horizons, or expanded or widened our horizons. 开阔了眼界. We all know that but can make a turn in the meaning of a sentence. But 经常表示转折. For example, the lake was not a natural one, but a man-made reservoir. In the text, there's another sentence using but more complicated. It was not that I actually remembered anything at all, but my father had described over and over again what we should see at every milestone. This but clause is too long, so it's made into a separate sentence. And a separate sentence structure also helps to emphasize why he didn't think he would need a map. The author of this text has emigrated into a new country, and in that country he is an immigrant. The most important country of immigrants in history is, of course, the United States. So it's called a melting pot, 大熔炉, because it has various cultures and customs. But some people think that a salad bowl is a more proper term, because in a melting pot, you won't be able to recognize the identity of each kind of culture. But in a salad bowl, it's integrated. At the same time, you can still recognize each ingredient. And for example, the Chinese immigrants in the United States is called ABC, American-born Chinese. Okay, so much on the topic of immigration and hometown. I'll see you next time.